Yo, what's up? What's up? What's up? We back, yo. What up? What up? What up? What up? What up? What going on with y'all, man? What's going on? I know it's been a minute, but here we are. So yeah, as y'all see the title, South Carolina Low Country Revolts, man. I ain't about to hold y'all too much longer. Just a quick little, I guess, context or whatnot, little background. So as far as this internet stuff, this YouTube stuff, you have a group of people saying that the transatlantic slave trade didn't happen. There's a bunch of weird talking points, right? Slave trade didn't happen. Some say that the people who came over here was white Africans, right? There's a whole bunch of misinformation that's at the end of the day rooted in racism, white nationalism, as far as this anti-African movement and talking points and whatnot. People say that there's no African culture here in America, so on and so forth, right? And they always love to say that they grandma said that they told them that they Indians. They always been here. Ain't no African. Boom, boom, boom. Right. And that's kind of how I model this channel as far as to just as far as beating up that information or whatnot. So yeah, but to go ahead and get right to it. So as far as they pretty much their only frame of reference is they grandma said, their elders and whatnot. So as far as me and how we rock over here in the Low Country, specifically Georgetown, where I from, we let our elders speak for us. You know what I'm saying? And don't be no confusion, which is why I ain't really got to say too much. I ain't really got to say too much. Fair use. This is a public library of Georgetown County. My elders. Y'all enjoy. Sit back. Take out some notes. You feel me? Let's get to it. Hold up. No sound. What? What? Y'all can't hear me. Mic check. Y'all can hear me. Fuck, man. Yo, they say no sound. They don't say nothing else after that. What the fuck? That's crazy. Yo, can I be heard? Peace, 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 peace. Can I be heard? Mic check. I was playing a video. Somebody said ain't no sound. And then ain't nothing. All right, cool. Bet. Appreciate that. Not a coincidence. All right, cool. You can hear this? Y'all hear that or not? I'm bugging, man. It's crazy. That really just threw me off. That really just threw me off. All right, can we hear that? God, damn. Hmm. I appreciate y'all. Y'all bear with me, yo. Shit. I don't even know why not. Hmm. Y'all bear with me then. Damn. I might just fucking call it a wrap. Hmm. Damn. Damn, that's crazy, man. Fuck. All I can do is play with the audio setting, which I just did. We try this one more time. If not, I appreciate y'all. But shit, we'll try to think up in the morning.
Claim. But to the south, in Florida, were the Spanish. And between the English colonies and the Spanish were the Indians. But the Spanish tried to undercut the English and tried to work against the English colonies. So they encouraged the slaves in the English colonies to run away to
Hmm.
in the Middle Passage.
All right, cool. Appreciate that. So check it right. Thank y'all for tuning in again. South Carolina Low Country Revolts. I'm gonna run that back just a tad bit. Well, I'm glad we ain't missed too much. Appreciate y'all tuning in. Really do appreciate
No people willingly submit themselves to slavery. Wherever there has been slavery, there has been resistance. And from the very beginning, there was resistance on the part of the Africans that were enslaved in the Americas and in Europe. But they resisted in the ways that they could resist. Coming over on the slave ships in the Middle Passage between Africa and the West Indian Islands, there were incidents of slaves who drowned themselves. And that perhaps is one of the reasons why they were so burdened with chains and laid out like logs or cigarettes in the bottom of these slave ships. But then when they got to the Americas or the West Indian Islands, they resisted. They resisted by pretending to have the inability to learn what was being taught to them. They resisted by working very slowly. They resisted, where possible, by half doing the work that was placed before them. They resisted by breaking the tools and pretending, that they had dropped them or they were clumsy or there was again the inability to learn. They resisted in some instances by poisoning the masters. They were the cooks, and sometimes they would just accidentally on purpose turn up dead from something they had eaten. And they resisted by pretending to be very stupid. And in many instances, these were highly intelligent people.
I ain't gonna try to do this too much, but some things I am gonna have to stop. The last frame we just seen with the cotton on their heads and whatnot, that's African tradition as far as transporting and carrying things. Facts. This right here, you see that fauna basket? People want to call it a sweetgrass basket. You know what I mean? It's a fauna basket. You know what I mean? For rice and everything. Straight from West Africa. But yeah, we're gonna keep it rolling. Oh yeah, and this elder who's speaking, God rest her soul. She done crossed over across that water, whatnot. She an ancestor now. Her name is Florida Yadell, and she is the Georgetown Gullah historian. Like she up there with Aunt Debbie and them, like they went to Howard High School and whatnot. So yeah, shout out to her.
And then where they could, they resisted by out and out revolt. Now, the first Europeans to attempt to settle this area, we have discussed the Spanish. And then it was more than 100 years after the Spanish attempted settlement failed that the English were successful in establishing themselves. But the English had been rivaled by the French, but they were able to establish themselves and push out the French claim. But to the south, in Florida, were the Spanish. And between the English colonies and the Spanish were the Indians. But the Spanish tried to undercut the English and tried to work against the English colonies. So they encouraged the slaves in the English colonies to run away to the Floridas. And that gives us one of our very first rebellions under the English.
Was considered the largest rebellion that took place. There were a number of rebellions that never took place, but the Stone Oak did. Started out with 20 slaves and ended up with about 60 of them. It was habitual a habit in the Charleston area on weekend where slaves had freedom. They'd have fish fry, barbecues on the weekend, while the masters would be attending social gathering or church. And it was brought to their attention that this was a dangerous practice because while they were all together, the slaves could come up with devious ideas or plans for insurrection and whatnot. So it was recommended that during this period, all men who went to social gathering or to church carry their gun. So on Sunday, September the 9th, some 20 or more slaves, led by a slave named Jimmy, Jemmy, broke into the Hutchinson warehouse or stole guns and ammunition and gunpowder, killed the storekeeper and another person who was in the store, and left their head upon the front step. They then moved to the house of a Mr. Godfrey, which they plundered and burned, killing the owner and his son and daughter. Moving southward along the main road to St. Augustine, they reached Wallace's Tavern before dawn. The road towards St. Augustine because they knew that that was where the Spanish were, and if they got there, they would be free. And the Spanish had been sending missionaries into the Charleston area, telling the slaves about liberty and freedom. At Wallace Tavern, the innkeeper was spared because he was thought to have been kind to his slaves. So they didn't kill the innkeeper, but they did. A neighbor was killed along with his wife, and Charles and his home was destroyed. When they came upon the house of Thomas Rose, his slaves succeeded in hiding him, for which they were later rewarded. As they moved along from place to place, they gathered slaves along with them. Some of them came voluntarily, some of them were forced to join the number, which indeed brought the number from 20 up to about 60. The number grew and they had been to the tavern, so they were fortified by alcohol, and they started beating two drums. Where they got those two drums from was not said. Beating two drums, marching as warriors and singing liberty, 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 and killing every white person they came in contact with. Happened so that Lieutenant Governor Bull was returning to Charleston for the beginning of the legislative session, saw the armed group of slaves, and he turned and ran. They didn't know who he was, but he ran and they kept on celebrating. They got to an open field in a circle, and they started marching around and around in the circle, singing liberty and singing songs. Lieutenant Governor Bull went to the church, a church of the Reverend Stone.
Real quick, that circle they were doing, I got additional attestation and documentation that proves that that circle was specifically a Congo war dance. But I'm gonna keep it going.
Noble and raised the alarm. And the men had followed the orders and they had their guns with them, and they got about 100 planters out of the church. They came upon the group in the open field. They didn't know that anybody was anywhere near them. They opened fire, killing about 14 of them immediately, and the others were caught questioned, and shot. Those who ran, some ran trying to get back to the plantation, figuring that maybe if they got back to the plantation, the master wouldn't be aware that they had been involved in the insurrection. Every slave they caught, they cut the head off and stuck the head on a mile post all the way back into Charleston. It took 3 years to finally catch the final ringleader, and he was immediately hanged. But that was the Stono Rebellion, and was considered one of the largest rebellions of slaves in the New World that ever took place.
And the people were just frightened. And it changed the relationship of slaves and masters. Because one of the things that they began to concentrate on as nearly as they could at that time was to bring in few slaves that came directly from Africa, because the person, Jimmy, who was responsible for organizing this revolt, was supposedly from Angola. And the people who followed him were also from Angola. And they would begin to do a great deal of another thing to mix up the slaves from different places in Africa so that they would not be able to come together in community of interest because they could communicate with each other.
So when people ask you, well, when these weirdo elbows, these people who say the slave trade ain't happening, ain't no African culture over here in America, so on and so forth, right? One of the things that they tend to ask so stupidly is, well, what tribe you from? I mean, my answer is always, well, the Gullah Geechee culture is a mixture of up to 25 different West to Central African ethnic groups. And as you just heard, my elder, big up Georgetown, South Carolina, you know what I'm saying? That's just what it is. You feel what I'm saying? And you even get the reason on why behind it. You feel me? Because where these Africans came from the same place, they could communicate, therefore revolt, kill a whole bunch of Bukra, as we just seen, right? Boom, and there's like, and they're showing you documentations and primaries and whatnot, but like it's just in this type of format. You know what I'm saying? But if you need to actually, like, I can definitely take it that route for sure, for sure. But yeah. So the mix of these different West Africans and Central Africans and whatnot, you know what I mean? That's how the Gullah culture formed. You know what I mean? That's the big origins of African American culture, Black America, whatever you want to call it. Well, yeah, we out here.
It also did another thing. They changed the law in relationship to slaves in 1740 and enacted a severe code of conduct for the slaves. And they were not to assemble, they were not to be taught to read and write. And those were not the only provisions, but those were perhaps the most outstanding provisions. But recognize that this changed the...
Hopefully, y'all caught that. For the ones that's familiar, I know I be having people in my comments that I ignore and whatnot on purpose, as far as they be saying crazy stuff, and I'll be trying to debate my comment section. But check it, right? 1739, still no rebellion. The year after, what she just say? They changed laws, right? Act 1740. What is that? If you could put one and one together to make two, the Negro Act of 1740, bro. So yeah, we're gonna keep it rolling.
The relationship of slave master and slave. It greatly influenced thought in the Western world, because this comes out of the French Revolution, when the French fought for, who remembers, fraternity,
liberty, fraternity,
and equality. And the people in Haiti, and Haiti was a French colony, They believe this beautiful philosophy. And after the French Revolution, you remember from your European history that later we go into the Napoleonic Wars. On that island, there are several men that you want to remember. Toussaint Louverture was a slave, and he was sort of like a hackman, wasn't he? And he was sufficiently secure to send his son to France for education. He was sufficiently astute to organize and sell the idea of rebelling against the French masters. And they succeeded in overthrowing them and taking over the plantations. Then the Frenchmen, in large numbers, began to leave the island and to come to the Americas. There are families here now living on the neck who originally came to this section at that time and established and began to establish themselves. The attempt to establish in Haiti a republic was the second revolution in this hemisphere to establish a democratic republic. And they were able to do that, but they have never especially succeeded in that they have remained a third world nation. They would need support from the West. And though the idea of government was the same as in the United States, the United States could not support them in their revolution because this was a revolution organized, carried out by blacks. And in the United States at this time, blacks were slaves. But
That man, look, yo, big up to the elders. That's a body bag for a whole lot of people out here in these YouTube streets. I'm gonna keep it going.
the Haitians did not realize that. The French were very smart. They pretended to Toussaint Louverture that they would sit down and talk with him. So they invited him on board one of their ships in the harbor. Come right in and sit and talk with us. And while he was sitting and talking with them, the ship slowly sailed away to France and took him to France. And he spent the remainder of his life in French prison. But that did not stop the revolution. There were other men, Pétain and Dessalines, who carried on and who, by the time that Napoleon came to power, were the first to defeat the crack troops of Napoleon, because Napoleon wanted the colony and he sent his brother and troops over to defeat it, but they were never able to defeat it. But this caused a great deal of anxiety on the part of the Americans. We cannot encourage and support this, because if we do, in the end, we are undercutting ourselves. So at that point, we want to recognize the influence of the French Revolution on the Haitian Revolution and the Haitian Revolution on our American history.
A young 24-year-old black, 6'2", wore his hair as his idol. He's imitating his idol, Samson. So he wore his hair long. And he was deeply religious. He meditated on the Bible, and he was an ambitious person. He had a dream of a black state. not in the Caribbean, but in Virginia. He laid plans for his uprising in the spring of summer of 1800. Along with his two brothers and his wife, they would make trips into Richmond and look over the area to see where was the best place to attack if they decided. And the attack plan was simple. They would enter Richmond in three columns. The first column would enter and take over the ammunition stores. The second would take the powder room. And the central section would enter from both ends, killing everyone in sight except Frenchmen, Methodists, and Quakers. But everyone else they would kill. After Richmond, he planned the attack to attack other areas, other cities in the state. By 1800, August of 1800, he had several thousand slaves supposed to be involved in this. Some writers said 2,000, some say as high as 50,000. We'll never know the exact number, had been enlisted. And the date of August the 30th, midnight, was set as the time for the attack. They had gathered weapons, swords, pikes, guns, every conceivable kind of weapon you could think of that they could get their hands on. Then disaster struck. On the night that they were supposed to start the insurrection, two slaves told their master about the plan. The master in turn went to the authorities, and the information from them was so much that the authorities figured that it was best to call out the militia and increase the armament around various installations. Prosser knew nothing about this. He continued with his plan to meet at a certain spot and get ready to attack Richmond. And then the second disaster struck. A terrible thunderstorm washed out bridges, washed out roads, everything. So they couldn't get into Richmond. And before they could reassemble and gather themselves what to do, the militia struck and killed a number of them, but they arrested 34 and later hanged them. Richmond would have been taken. Another writer said it was no problem that if the plan had succeeded, Richmond would have been taken. Of all the people in Richmond, they couldn't find more than 30 guns, 30 musket amount, all of them. So they knew that if it had worked, if it hadn't been for an act of God, I don't know whether Prosser would call that an act of God or what, but that and the fact that two individuals talked, Richmond would have been taken. But after that date, if an acorn fell on the roof of a house, you'd have pandemonium. Everyone thought. A number of slaves were killed because they just thought they were a danger. And if a black was ever caught with a gun, he was immediately shot. That was the amount of fear that was in Richmond at that period.
Now, VC was owned by a West Indian captain, and he was in and out of Charleston. And he came with his captain and went with his captain. On one occasion, when he was in Charleston, he bought a lottery ticket. And when he bought that lottery ticket, would you believe that he won the lottery? And he took the money and bought his freedom. And then he chose to stay in Charleston in association with other free Negroes. Now, in Charleston, there was a very large free Negro population, and he began to plot an insurrection in Charleston.
Peep the newspaper. If you know, you know. I'm gonna leave it at that.
And it was very well planned. One of the things that he said was they did not want any house Negroes in on the planning. They didn't want anyone on the planning who worked in the house of the master as cook or butler or valet or any dishwasher, because they felt that the association would be so close that they would not give their complete loyalty to the planning of the insurrection. And he was right, because in some way, a house Negro did get in on the planning. And as the time came, he told his master. And when he told his master, they were able to resist the planned insurrection. But he had it so carefully planned that whatever you worked at, that is what you were responsible for. Blacksmiths were responsible for making the arms, the spikes. And whatever you worked at, that would be the area of your responsibility.
No one could ever tell the entire plan because they had it planned so that you only knew about that part of the plan that you were responsible for. You never knew the entire plan. It was compartment up so that this group knew, but this group didn't know what this knew. So no one could go and tell the entire plan, but someone could say there's an insurrection plan. And when that house Negro was recruited, he went back to his master and told his master they planned to have a revolt. They went to the police, and at the beginning, the police didn't believe them. They called the VVN and some of his followers, Gullah Jack and all of them, and they were indignant, calling us in for
Y'all heard it. Gullah Jack.
a revolt. We haven't done anything, and so they turned them loose. But little by little, bits and pieces started coming in. One slave named Wilson. He felt that if he betrayed the insurrection, he could get his family free out of slavery. So he went and added his 2 cents worth in and convinced the police that there was an insurrection, and they started arresting them.
Hey, real rap. I don't even want to say that no more. This pseudo name, bro. Anyway, freaking yo, check it right. I don't know any other place minus Queen Quet, right? At least on YouTube specifically, that even give y'all the name of the dude that snitched on Denmark VC. I don't know no other spot, yo. So just because of that alone, man, hit the like, bro. Real shit.
Those who testified for the government got a pension of $25 a year, I believe. Wilson didn't get anything. He didn't even get his family freed. Freed him, but not his family. And he eventually went insane and died. But it was a scary time in Charleston at that moment.
Now, there was a great deal of reaction from the VC insurrection. They began to pass very strict laws. First, they passed a law prohibiting other free Negroes to come into South Carolina. They knew there was a large free Negro population in Charleston. Then ships coming into the Charleston harbor that had Negro sailors or free Negroes on them. For the time that that ship was in the harbor, those people would have to be placed in jail, and the ship would have to pay for their keep.
Why is that important in regards to Denmark VC conspiracy, right? Insurrection, right? Because who is Denmark VC? Where was he born? In the islands, yo. Facts. How did he get to Charleston? Huh? Cause he was on ships and whatnot. He was working on ships. Black seaman. You know what I'm saying? I don't even want. People are weird on here on the YouTube shit. I don't even want to say that. You feel me? So whatever. But like, yeah, he was a black. You know, he was a black ship. You know what I mean? He was working on ships and whatnot. That's the person who was quote unquote owned him owned the damn boat. So he was going back and forth and whatnot. And he ended up in Charleston. So there, because of that, being who Denmark VC was, yeah, no more black people working on ships. If you come here, you're working on the ship, you got to go into the jail. That's how that happened. You welcome for the context.
Denmark VC is credited with being a very brilliant planner. But one of the questions you would have to always ask yourself is if any of these insurrections had been successful, what would they do afterwards? And one of the things that surprised the people in organizing the insurrections is they were not always supported as well as they thought they might be, because I'm sure the slaves would ask themselves, well, then after this, what happens to us?
A female slave went and told the master that George and Tuco had been planning an insurrection, and they arrested them. They belonged to Francis Kinlaw, and he wanted his slaves back. They arrested them and tried them and found them guilty, but they tried them with unsworn testimony, hearsay testimony. Kinlaw got a lawyer for his slaves because he wanted to keep his slaves. Slaves were too valuable to lose. And they wouldn't even let the lawyer talk to the prisoners. But they took them to trial, tried them, and found them guilty. George was hanged. Cuckoo and seven others, I believe, was excommunicated, sent to away to the what they call hard labor in the tropic, never to return to see their family or anything. But nothing ever happened. If they talked about it, it was sworn to by, not in a court of law, but just told to the authorities that it had happened, and it wasn't sworn testimony, it was hearsay testimony. And the individuals were not allowed to face their accuser, nor were their lawyers allowed to talk with them.
Before we leave Georgetown, big old Georgetown, yo. That right there should at least give y'all some kind of clue on why I operate, how I'm wired, how I'm wired. First off, there's no xenophobic shit within my culture. As you see, in my library, my elders, they teach us about Haiti and all those African descent people that she named earlier. Facts. We learn about Richmond, ironically, bigger 804. Y'all, if you know, you know, right? As you see, we about to get it in that Turner. As you see, we already know the connection between us and the islands. Facts. And the continent as well. So all of these talking points that I've been hearing on YouTube is weird as hell. And they're always going to be weird to me because it's not my culture. That ain't come from my elders. Y'all talking about, well, grandma said this, grandma said that. my elders as a collective stand on certain stuff. Facts.
He was known as the prophet. They had to tie his mother down. He was the child of a slave woman, and they had to tie his mother down. She did not want to bring a child into slavery. She had to be tied to prevent her from killing her child. Early in life, he felt that he had been placed here for a reason by God, for some great purpose. He
I'm sorry, but yeah, as y'all heard, the mother didn't want to give birth to a child into slavery. I mean, little caveat. Did Toni Morrison write a book about that? That's not allowed to get taught in schools right now. Is it called Beloved? Beloved? They made a movie about it too. I'm gonna keep it rolling.
avoided crowd and close companionship. He renounced tobacco, liquor, and money. He was looked upon with some importance by all of the other slaves. He was looked upon with such great admiration that at one time an overseer allowed him to baptize them. And his plan was to let no one with white skin be spared except a family of poor whites who did not own slaves.
Big up to South Hampton County, Virginia. This past weekend, I was there for a Juneteenth event doing security, holding it down. And yes, a lot of history down there. Um, the oral tradition is the oral tradition. A lot of these people get on it. They even say Nat Turner wasn't real. They call him a myth, yo. You know what I mean? And then disrespect his legacy and everything he did and stood for. So yeah, it is crazy because I love my ancestors and I love my culture, bro. Clearly, because this is a one-stop shop to kill, to just straight up debunk these certain talking points and these weird things that I come across in these YouTube and Clubhouse. It's just social media. Period. TikTok. There's a lot of misinformation. There's a lot of racism, white nationalists that's getting spewed by people who look like me, and that shit is weird.
Most people thought of him as being insane, but after reading his confession, it sounded like the confession of a sane man. But he was eventually caught after being trailed, traced, and laying out in the woods and caves for a long time. They finally caught him, and he was hanged.
And just being all the way, just be me being me. There is another higher level of conversation that can be had about that confession as well. But right now ain't the time. Literally, it's not the time. It's 3:21. So yeah. All right, boom, and then that's that, yo. So we gonna stop the sharing and whatnot. So yeah, what did we learn about real quick? We learned about first off the Africans coming to the Americas, right? We also saw the Haitian Revolution, right? We also saw the Stono Rebellion, 1739. the context behind that, as far as the edict that Florida, that Spain did, because it controlled Florida, as far as the Africans who enter will be free, right? So you run away, you go and make your way into Florida, you'll be free. And little caveat: the highway, quote unquote highway, the route that they took to get from to get from South Carolina to Florida is called Pon highway. That's a quick little Gullah fact for y'all, real quick. And yeah, I put the link in there. Somebody, whoever's still watching, want to come up, ask something, add on, whatever the case may be. I'm with it. I'm still up for a little minute. So yeah, what else do we get? Stonewall Rebellion, which led into the Negro Act of 1740. Boom. We got Gabriel Prosser, Richmond, Virginia. Big up. 804, 1800. Again, the Haitian Rebellion. Boom. And all the, well, not all the nuances, but some of the nuances that went on within that, as far as how that black nation got jerked around because they were a black nation, right? So yeah, um, who got their own freedom, you know? So I mean, bigger Haiti, man. Definitely learn about Haiti in the culture. The xenophobia is not in the culture at all. Learn about Denmark Vesey, you know, born in an island, came over here off the boat. He was working on the boat, right? Ended up in Charleston, free black population, and yeah, planned a revolt, no house slaves. Ended up that fuck ass dude Wilson, a house, you know, dude that was in a house, fucked up the whole shit, you know. And then also, one of the questions she asked was, what you gonna do after, you know, if the revolt did pop off, what you gonna do after? That's always gonna be a part of planning too, just moving forward. FYI, you know. So yeah, it's a part of planning, you know, for real. And we also know that the price of freedom is death too. It can't be. Yeah. So yeah. Um. Yeah, yo, like that's what's up. The Georgetown incident, what was that, 1829? You know, how that ancestor got jerked as far as just off of hearsay, couldn't even face the accuser. Even the buck bought a lawyer, and it couldn't, you know, and even the lawyer couldn't even speak. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, just off of hearsay at that. And big up Nat Turner, you know. Well, again, I was just in Southampton this past weekend for their Juneteenth event. We shut it down. We held it down, you know. So yeah, much respect to him and his legacy, you know. And yeah, anybody talking down about the ancestors, yo, I ain't got nothing but smoke for you as far as this information, yo. You know, so I'm sourced up over here. Y'all let me know what's happening. I do these little videos for fun. It's easy to, you know, watch and whatnot, you know what I'm saying? But the primaries is always on stockpile. That's a fact. Books galore and everything. So yeah, yeah, I appreciate y'all, man. I appreciate whoever, you know, tuned in and whoever watches this on the replay as well. You know, so yeah, hit that like button for me. If there ain't anything else, whoever's still watching, you know, you can drop something real quick while I'm still on. And if you got a question, I'll try my best to answer. And if not, either I will go to the place I'm gonna direct you, or just direct you on where to go to get the specific question answered. You know, so yeah, we in there for sure. I greatly appreciate y'all. What I got coming up next? I've been dropping some stuff on Wangarito. If y'all check out the post section on my channel. Yeah, dropping some yeah, dropping some primaries and whatnot. Also some AI generated pictures to go along with some information that I'm dropping. You know, got an AI Wangarito, Dave the Potter. That's a build on him coming up. I mean, I can have a build about Florida Yadel herself. I can have a build about Howard High School. It's just some of the stuff, you know, that I got just go on about. You know, it's Gullah Griot TV. So yeah, I appreciate y'all definitely. And yeah, hit the like, share, get these algorithms going and whatnot. You know, yeah, that's my time. Y'all appreciate y'all. Y'all be easy. Peace, Black Pie, Gullah Griot TV.